Hello, friends. It's so great to be back with you today. Well, check this out. Okay, this is the chart as it's printed currently. But what I did was I did a little bit more research and I found a little bit of extra data. So I've again reconstructed this chart. It's very, very exciting. There are about 3 different things I want to cover in this video. And one of them is I want to talk again about the technological effect and some points around that based on questions and issues that people brought up in the comments. So I want to refer to things that you guys have brought up about what might be going on. That's the first thing. The second thing is, and explain my take on it. The second thing is that I wanted to talk about, there were quite a few comments, and there have been, about ringing in the ears and different physiological effects that people are having. And I wanted to address that. And let me just say that if you feel you need to see a doctor, go ahead and do that. This discussion that I'm having is only about energy, so it's not about anything medical related. Okay, and the next thing is that I wanted to chat with you about the current chart, which is kind of back to a normal pattern, but has some images in it that are ones we've seen before, number 1. And number 2, the frequency numbers are doing some cool stuff. So let's get into it. Okay, now, in terms of the technological effect, which is right here, there were people who kind of have been talking about solar storms, coronal mass ejections, magnetic field fluctuations for various reasons. And I want to address my point of view on this. I had showed you in two videos ago, and it's linked down below. The date is September 1st. I had shown you where the geomagnetic storms and solar flares, actually they weren't solar flares, they were kind of sucking in, the sun's sucking in. I had shown you that relative to this chart, and there wasn't really a correlation. The other thing is that I've seen, we've had CMEs, coronal mass ejections, before, and I haven't really noticed a big effect in the Schumann necessarily. Always something that I want to keep an eye on, though. But there is an aspect of magnetic field fluctuation that hasn't been discussed in the way that I've been thinking about it. So I want to share that with you in a minute. So I think that a lot of people are just simply trying to find an explanation for what this could have been. Here's the thing. These gatherings of the green energy here, which I explained in the last 2 videos, what I thought this was, I called it a frequency interface. They really, really correspond quite well with human brain waves. So the alpha, the low beta, the beta, and the high beta. And that's, in my book, that's beyond coincidence. This transmission, if it is a transmission, does not go into the gamma range, which was also really interesting. It stopped within the beta range. I just thought that was interesting. I mean, this is all conjecture here, and again, these views are my views. The views that I'm expressing are my own, and only my own. I think that people are trying to find an explanation. Totally makes sense to me. I'm trying to find one too. But in terms of whether there could be some kind of effect or technology that would be global like this, have such an incredible global effect, and potentially even affect the magnetics of the planet. I want to show you one of the reasons why I think that's possible. And this is really, really cool. This is a chart from the United States perspective. But this is from about 11, it started on 11/11. In the United States, and this chart is dated 11/12/2018. That's the time in Tomsk, Russia. I call this pattern the gates of heaven, and I'll link the gates of heaven. I did a little short video on the image of the gates of heaven in general. This was just absolutely amazing. And I'll also link an article below. On 11/11/2018, a tone rang out for 17 seconds that was completely unexplained. And then this vibration just kind of circled the globe. And it was really stunning because scientists couldn't come up with an explanation for it. Here's what I thought at the time. What I felt was that it was essentially an announcement that some major advanced technologies had been taken over or accessed, or a huge advance had been made by what I would call the positive military. So the military, and in my view, the U.S. military, since I'm American, I focus on that supports life-enhancing policies, like the United States Constitution. That is for we the people. So at any rate, that's how I saw it, as a sort of an announcement that a new day is dawning, one in which advanced technologies would be used for the benefit of all people, and that this would slowly roll out over time. I know I'm just feeling this incredible feeling in my heart as I'm saying this and looking at this incredible image. I'm going to make it a little bit bigger so you can see it bigger on the screen. Yeah, wow. You know what it felt like and looked like to me? As if a harmonic had been rung. I've mentioned it before, but I played the violin when I was younger. String instruments have a spot on them, which is a harmonic, where if you lightly touch the string, it makes this incredible, beautiful sound that is so much different than the regular notes. It's like at a whole new... Really, it's like a whole new dimensional state, really. It's a whole different state of being, if you will, musically. And that's what this felt like to me. And it has a very celestial or sort of divinely aligned feeling to it. And so you can, if you want to see more about what I think about this pattern, you can look at the Gates of Heaven video. The last thing I want to say about this pattern here is that if this is a frequency interface where certain frequencies are being lifted out. I explained in my first video on this, which is a 2-hour deep dive, and I really went into like a lot of detail, starting at 1 hour and 11 minutes. And that just happened by accident. Okay, it was so fascinating that by accident, I actually started exactly at that number, the discussion of this pattern. So the red and the yellow frequencies often represent the shadow element, the green beneficial for humanity, and the white celestial, more expanded energies. But they also highlight what's active on the chart, the white resonance. Okay, but anyway, so what I had showed was just a quick review that it looked like the red and yellow, that there was a pattern, a particular signature that had been located here in this group of images, and then had been that the frequency interface, I explained how I felt it worked, that it had connected with that particular signature, and then here it slowly lifted out through each level of brain waves, lifted that out. What I explained was that I felt that this could be a parasitic entity. By entity, I mean a series of aspects within a resonance that are I would say not life-supporting. They have a parasitic element to them. And Ephesians 6:12 says, "For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places." This particular verse is quite stunning in how it summarizes so aptly the parasitic forces of darkness that have preyed upon the human energy structure for so long. In the deep dive, I explained a lot about this. What I want to say is this: if this reflects a technology that has been able to interface, that pops the parasitic element out, and in doing so, the parasitic element is removed from our system, sort of the earth-based system, the human system. And the fact that it corresponds so aptly with brain waves just amazes me. Think about it this way. if the parasitic element were very compressed in nature, in other words, if it was of a very, very dense consistency in the non-physical, if you will, it would have been very magnetic and at the lower levels of the dimensional nature of magnetism. I see magnetism, again, this is my thinking and my theories, but I see magnetism as being characteristic of the third dimension, okay, from a physics of force perspective. So dimensions have layers in them, layers of being more expanded or denser. And so at the dense levels, if a parasitic element had sort of hacked into our frequency ranges, okay, that Earth and humanity together that we exist within. But if an aspect, a non-physical aspect, had been able to sort of invade our realm and be present here, but not really native to our realm, if it was removed and therefore the lower dimensional aspects, the lowest parts of the magnetic aspects of the third dimension, that was cleared. In other words, the denser layers were now cleared of some of this deep density, then what would happen? The magnetic field would sort of pop up. It would flex, and as it flexed, that would be the release of the density. And then as it popped back into form, it would be in a similar form as before, but it would be in a more expanded state, dimensional state. So it would be the same third dimension, but without as much density. So exciting. It was someone who calls themselves Archangel Gabriel, and I just loved that was the first comment on the video. So I love Archangel Gabriel. But this person said that their ears were ringing and ringing, and it was really hurting them. And I really felt for you guys. There's quite a few people that commented on that. Patricia also was talking about crying, realizing so many truths. There was another comment by Julie who was talking about this looking like deliberate interference. And I had to agree with that, but rather than interference, I would call it action, deliberate action. So I wanted to address this concept. Okay, so there are sometimes the energies that are emitted in general put us in an energetic state where it's almost like our mind is offline. For example, I have been experiencing this through the entire and since, okay, because I had it all day today, since this technological effect. But today I felt like I call it in the dream time. It's like this state of just wanting to nod off and fall asleep. And this evening I was walking around feeling like I was practically in the dream time, but yet I was walking around, doing my daily things. And I think what happens, and it really correlates with the brainwave patterns pointed out so clearly on this technological effect in the Schumann. If our mind is offline and there's energetic work being done in our mind in alignment with the highest good, is what it looks like to me, then it's much more easy for our mental state to shift if we are not attached to our mental state in the moment, right? And sometimes people experience that through uncomfortable physiological symptoms or ear ringing, which often is just completely unexplained. Sometimes it's just a state where you can't think. It was a few weeks ago, a friend of mine was working on a technical paper, was in the middle of one of these states and was having the hardest time writing this technical paper. And I completely understood their situation because been there. Where I've come to now is that if I can't get that real mental aspect online at this point in myself, I try to go with the flow because I'm acknowledging that there may be greater shifts of energy happening in my field. And I believe these things are that I have a spiritual guidance team that works with me and on my energetic field structure, which includes the energy structure of my physical body, that this is being adjusted and realigned in alignment with my highest good. And in the case of humanity as a whole, it looks like that the parasitic elements have been being removed technologically from varying levels of our brain waves. So if the mind is offline, maybe just intend that what transpires is in your highest good, and that this is going to be in your benefit. Ask that it be turned to your benefit somehow, and miracles happen. That's one of my favorite things. So as far as I could tell, there was no data for just this about an hour here. Otherwise than that, the technological effects seem to almost go till 9 a.m. on the chart on September 4th. And now here we are on September 5th. Now we're back to a normal pattern. And what was fascinating to me is that the first normal pattern that we have is the same picture of the temple, entering the temple, that has this exact image as appeared before, almost exact. Okay, so what you have here is you have this very long line that goes to 40 hertz, mostly dominated by the white, especially at the top. The pillar on the left and the pillar here on the right, another line that goes to 40 hertz. And then you have this deep blue space within. Again, you have almost like a 3D, the wall of the temple as you walk in. This time, one of the individuals that we've been seeing, especially I talked about this on the 2-hour video that's linked below, the deep dive. So here we have an individual now within the temple. Now look at this. This is one of the mind-controlled people that I talked about. And here they are. They are in the temple now, which is fascinating. That tells me that people who are very, very attached to their specific mental patterns, okay, where they're living on the edge of the field, not in touch with their heart, because you see the heart is not really very activated here. There's quite a bit of dense energy, although there is some of the yellow. That's as light as it gets there. That these people, some amount of these people are now present within the temple space. What that means to me, combined with this technological effect that we had, is that they may be getting ready for a very big shift happening, which will be made easier if the parasitic element that was in a lot of our brain waves or energy fields, if that has been lifted out, it's going to make it a lot easier for these people, those of us. I'm not trying to say that you go from being imperfect to perfect, okay? Because life and the spiritual journey is a process. And as far as I can tell, every time I get through one stage of the process, I'll go for a little bit enjoying that stage and then suddenly find something new to work on from an inner perspective. But what it looks like is that there's going to be a group of people that are newly entering the temple. And there's very much a divine feminine aspect here, where the divine feminine is at play, supporting humanity and supporting us, opening our hearts, and those of us who have not been able to open our hearts in the past, the opportunity for this to happen as we enter the temple, as we enter the space of communing with the divine. Now here you can see the other aspect that helps here is clearing the vertices. It's interesting because the matrix in the background of energy is pretty well clear of red and yellow shadow elements and dark forces energy. There's very, very little of that. Whereas in the past, it's dominated the matrix. So perhaps we're seeing a benefit of the lifting out of this particular energy signatures through the technological effect. That's my view of what happened, okay? But you see here that even points of the matrix have been cleared, okay? Vertices where a vertical line and a horizontal line cross, where they meet. The clearing happens from there and then moves out vertically and horizontally along the matrix structure. But what's fascinating here is, oh my God, I'm going to take a screenshot. This is so gorgeous. Look at this. Look at the jewel colors here. The purple, even the ruby red, the brilliant lime green, the gorgeous aqua blue. We're seeing an elevation. And I just talked about that. If a lower aspect of third dimensional magnetism was released, that it would upgrade the entire planetary field, okay? Well, look what you've got here. This looks like an incredible upgrade of energies because the colors are all, in the jewel spectrum, even brilliant pastels. It's incredibly gorgeous, incredibly gorgeous. Ooh, it makes me happy. Now, I want to show you something else about the Divine Feminine that was really where she appeared before all this happened, okay? Here's the first one in this series that occurred in 831, this technological effect. The deep dive video talks about this quite a bit. Now, look at this series here. You see the clearing of the vertices before the very, hours and hours long technological effect. Again, same aspect that we're talking about. Look how the colors are different. They're still brighter here, but they're really super bright after the technological effect. But what I wanted to show you was this. It's very powerfully feminine and it's very sexual. It's very second chakra, first chakra in the male. But the sexual creative energy just came in right here. To me, this looks like the labia, the female labia. But look, it's got this gorgeous purple, this brilliant yellow, this gorgeous red, and the entrance into the mystery right within the center of the lips of the labia. So it was really interesting to me that this powerful feminine energy appeared right here before the clearing of the vertices and then the technological effect, which lasted almost 2 days. And I wanted to also just show you this image, which I had put as the face of the last thumbnail. But this is Eris, goddess of war. And in the last thumbnail, I talked about the interesting astrological timing of these technological effects. The divine feminine is at play very, very powerfully in these charts and in the current energies. And it's just absolutely thrilling and beautiful to see. It literally has been giving me chills this whole time that I've been talking about this with you. And I'm just so gratified and deeply grateful to see the power of the divine feminine at play here. I don't know, it's just an amazing, really good feeling.